Hi everyone! I've been wanting to do this video for quite a while, and today I'll talk about painting hair. I'm gonna share with you my approach, but keep in mind that there are many other ways to do the same thing, and we're not limited to this technique, it's just what I do and what works for me. Let me start by saying, when you paint hair, I believe that you should go from general to specific. You shouldn't try to paint separate locks of hair right off the bat, but rather establish the right values and tones of the whole thing first, and then you can go on and add some details, etc. I begin with putting the darkest tones, and as I've said before, I try to establish the overall look or form first, and then go into defining things further. When I have the darkest areas and places that are in the shadow more or less covered, I pick up some medium tones, lighter tones, and lay them down as well. But it's important, I think, to not go straight into painting very light hair, but rather work your way gradually from the darks to the lights and put the highlights as the last step. The lightest hair and highlights appear in places where the light hits the surface the most. In this example, the lighting is quite diffuse and all over the place, but at the same time we can see some stronger light that's coming from the right. So we will have to take this into account and lighten hairs from the side here a little more as we go along. Oftentimes, if you look closely, you could see different hues or shades of colors in our hair. For this reason, I mix in a little more purple here, add some yellowish or greenish shades there, etc, etc. This variety of colors can be subtle, but they're there, and having those slight color shifts will make the hair look more realistic and interesting. It'll give more life to it. Now, as you can see, I'm going further and adding some details. I use very small round brushes for this kind of work in sizes 1, 0 or even 00. I'm trying to paint very smoothly and subtly now, lightly touching the canvas with my brush, because I want to blend these little hairs in, not making them stand out too much, because it could look unnatural. Also, I'm gonna mention that the lighter I go, and especially if I'm painting the small hairs with lighter color, I need to make sure to wipe the brush with a paper towel each time before I go back to my palette to pick up a new color. And the reason is that when you put some lighter brush strokes on top of the darker area, usually the brush picks up some of that dark color underneath, and it can pollute the new color or make it duller. By the way, I believe that you can apply the same painting principle for any hair color, and the areas in the shadow can be quite dark, regardless of if you're painting a blonde, brunette, etc. If the areas in the shadow won't be dark enough, you will lose the volume and the depth that needs to be there for achieving a realistic result. So you can go back to the dark tones again if you realize that some of the darker parts are not dark enough. And that's what I love so much about oil painting. It's fine if you make mistakes, because you can fix them anytime, just paint over it. It's a very forgiving medium, so you can get back and revise things, is basically what I'm saying. If you feel like it's hard to paint the details on top of wet paint, because you've laid down a pretty thick layer of paint already, in this case what you can do is to let the painting dry and add those details you want on the second layer on top of dry paint. But remember, sure, you can paint some stray hairs and so on, however, it doesn't mean that you have to go to the smallest level of details. In fact, hair can often look a lot better the smoother and less defined it's painted. You know? When we look at someone's hair, we see how it all blends together. We don't actually see each individual hair, even though we know they're there. So when we paint them, we should try to make them flow together in a realistic manner. Last but not least, I make sure to put the highlights. It's where the hair shines the most under the light. And there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have an amazing day today. See ya!